if we're going to transform society, people have to take these skills on themselves. So Fixit Clinic very clearly does not fix it for you.
Right.
You're the one who rolls up your shirt sleeves and gets a screwdriver and gets
really?
it. Yeah, I thought you knew that. You said you did your research.
Yeah, I did.
No, we're different than the other repair offerings out there. We are not a service in that regard. We are all about you being actively engaged in your own repair. I went to one of those other ones in Palo Alto. I went to a repair cafe. So just
cafe. That's what I was looking for.
Well, okay, just the background. So the repair cafe is this other model. Okay, they're based out of the Netherlands. The Netherlands government underwrites them. Martine Postma is a friend of mine.
So why can't our government do something like this?
There's no reason, Doc. They couldn't. And I do have sponsorship. I mean, Stop Waste in Oakland in Alameda County does sponsor Fixit Clinic. So it's it's a good thing that some people are recognizing the importance to have. But there's existing stakeholders for whom the things that we're doing at Fixit Clinic are not in the interest to have happen.
Well, you know what? I would say, I'm going to throw one at you, okay? This is a big one. This is a psychological one. I like that word, dangin'. I do. I don't understand all of it, but I do like it. Psychologically, what you're doing is actually acclimating somebody into society and learning to reason and logic by fixing their own stuff. Am I right?
Well, I've never heard it phrased quite that way, but sure. I would say we're trying to teach them critical thinking and basic troubleshooting skills that are applicable long beyond the one item they brought in to fix it or fix a clinic.
But the lack of logic in our society is one of the things that we're just hurting from, am I right?
Okay, well, why is it that we gave up our power for independent thought? Why were we willing to relinquish that?
Well, you know what? One of the things is we're a robot society, But what we need to do is get back to just exactly what you're doing. When you teach a person to acclimate themselves logically and actually transcend into life, knowing that they have that confidence and that faith, and this is what building a computer does. When you see something work, when I build a new race car and I fire it up, I think I'm 15 years old again, okay? And this is the same thing in the human mind. When we progress and transcend in life, it makes a better person. Am I understanding you right?
Yeah, that's right. So Fixit Clinic is not for everybody.
Right.
Everyone's got broken stuff at home.
Right.
I mean, if we thought we were running a service that said, bring your broken stuff, we'll fix it for you, we would be swamped.
Right.
Okay, so, and actually even now, capacity exceeds demand. Okay, demand exceeds capacity dramatically. So I'm with you on that completely, that we are really trying to teach people how to make things, how to improve their lives across the board. And not just relinquish this idea that I'm trying to find the words that are eloquent to say it, but I would just say this whole idea that what Fixit Clinic is doing is demystifying science and technology, which are so critical in the modern world for everybody. Try to dispense this information. The idea that things are fixable is sort of the gateway drug to have people recognize, oh, maybe there's things fixable beyond this toaster that I brought into this toaster oven that I brought into the Fixit Clinic. Maybe there's other aspects of society or some other things that I can work on.
One of the things that I always say is opening doors that can transcend you into life at a different level and a different time and space. That's a big thing, but it's a big question area too. One of the things that I see that you're doing again is that you're actually seeing a person that can build something, and have the faith and confidence that they can build more and more and more. And this is good entrepreneurship, am I right?
Well, sure, absolutely.
This is where entrepreneurship comes from, am I right? Mm-hmm. When people have faith and when people can have the idea to go into something logically and go into something and say, I can do this. You know what? One of my kids came home one day, and I was looking at him and I said, what the hell that you got in your garage? He said, I have a MacBook in there. I said, where were you at? He said, I was at the landfill. We are a wasteful society. We're not just wasting away materials, we're wasting away brain power, am I right?
Right. So like I said, there's enormous wealth in the society, it's just very lumpily distributed.
So I'm going to get off key a little bit. How would you communicate that to the inner city where we're failing and where many people have fallen through the cracks and where failures are every day and people are living and dying because they don't know and they don't have that little thing to get into what you're saying?
You know, since I'm here on Fixit Clinic, I'll use that as the entree point. I've thought about this a lot beyond Fixit Clinic, but let's just stick with that. So we hold the Fixit Clinics at public libraries.
Right.
They're free.
Right.
Anybody can come. We try to hold them on weekends in the afternoon so that whole families can come if they want to. That's important. We're trying to do what we can to make sure that it's a family-friendly event, that the threshold or the impediments to being part of it are really low. We're trying to encourage middle schools and high schools to be involved in this stuff too.
Back up. Middle school.
Yeah.
Those are 10-year-olds.
Yeah, I say my core demographic is the precocious middle schooler. It's the kid in the family who inherits all the broken stuff, and he or she can be the hero if they can get the toaster oven working again.
So, we're going to a new echelon of living right now. We're not going to that person who's just age of reasoning and all this stuff at 12, 13, 14 years old. You're going a little bit. I saw that in your presentation. I saw that, and I was blown away. I'm looking at a 10-year-old girl, and this, you know, one of the things in our society is girls don't come up like this ego thing with boys who I can do anything. Girls come up more sure. They come up with more adaptive to things than men do, and especially boys of today. You know, not all boys, but most boys, you know. And I see that you got girls now also. What do you say to the lady, all the ladies out there, young ladies, young ladies, young girls who want to be ladies?
Come on down to Fixit Clinic, bring your broken stuff, and drag all your friends too. You know, we're absolutely open to having them. They are definitely, absolutely the people that I want to come to events. So you talked about 8-year-olds that participate in Fixit Clinics. We have parents bring in their 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds. We had a woman show up and say, well, he loves to see things getting taken apart. Can we just walk around and see all these things that are being taken apart? And I was like, of course you can. So it's a spectator sport for some people, but it's also, you know, and we're totally open to that. That's why we like to have it at libraries. We put a big sign out front. People coming in to drop off a book or get a book, they say, what's going on here? And they come in and it's like, holy cow, you're doing this? I got something broken at home. And I'm like, well, can you get back here before we close? We'll take a look at it.
You know what? I'm going to have somebody get a hold of you if it's okay.
Oh, by all
It's the
means.
Black Cultural Center, and it's on 14th, and it's right there next to the freeway. 14th, and I forget that cross street. It's in Oakland, you know, and they would love you, because, you know, this is one of the things that we need in the inner city, because there are so many people with so less of confidence. So, I mean, they figure that there is nothing left for them in this world. So this is why we have all the problems, you know. And there's one phrase that I found out from J. Edgar Hoover. Believe it or not, if anybody's old enough to know who J. Edgar Hoover was, it's called psychological aggressiveness. When you replace something in a person's mind with a positive element instead of something psychological aggressive and something negative, you make a better person. And I think you can do that. I'm gonna call you Professor.
Okay.
How about that? Is that okay?
Whatever.
But seriously speaking, on a very serious basis, you're actually building the mind of a young person.
Maybe, but you know, when you talk about those urban centers, the skills are there, okay?
Right.
Most of my Fixit coaches are our age. They're not those young people, all right? Those people are in the community now. In the church basement, there's some church volunteer whose job it is to get all the broken electronics that have been donated for the annual church flea market, and figure out which ones work and which ones don't. Okay?
You know what? If I refer people to you, is that okay? Because you know what?
Sure.
One of the things is that you can get this going. You're right. You can have these little L's out there, so to speak.
Fixit coaches.
Fixit coaches.
We call them Fixit coaches.
Fixit coaches. You know, and we're going to put you out here big time. I'm blasting you next week, at least twice on the next show on next Tuesday, because you know what? I believe that you are the grassroots person. You know, and there are some grassroots people out there that are really doing a lot of good stuff. You know, and we tend to like to put people like you on the air. I mean, you actually help people to look at solutions and logic to solutions and to go on. I would envision rather that you're going to have people calling you that want to learn to do the same thing, to present things. That's the whole click, am I right?
And I'd like to add another aspect to it. I'm also a event planner among all the other things I do. And I see it as a great team building event.
It is, absolutely.
You know, I see companies, you know, needing to have people learn to work together and see all the different levels of skill and different ways to communicate, and having a company come in and do that is excellent.
Well, you know what? The thing of it is that networking is critical in our society. And this is one thing I want to ask. How do you network and get your stuff out there other than just putting a sign up out there?
Oh, it's a lot of hard work. Now, you have to understand, there's not just the Fixit clinics in the Bay Area. They're nationwide now. So our largest successful satellite is the Minneapolis, Minnesota area, where they're being run by the Hennepin County Environmental Services. There's a woman there, Nancy Lowe. We flew out to help her with her first one.
Yeah.
She has taken it and she has run with ball. And she's had over 50 Fixit clinics at this point. Once a month in Minneapolis, okay? We've got a successful satellite in Boulder, Colorado. We've got a successful satellite in Orange County. We're running them in San Diego, Austin, Texas, Flagstaff, Arizona. I just got contacted by the Eugene, Oregon last week. So they're all over the country. They're rocking and rolling. People get it. Okay, there's any number of reasons why you want to run Fixit clinics. People get it. The challenge is that they get nervous for any number of reasons, but the main one is not having the Fixit coaches. I mean, demand exceeds capacity.
Communication.
Well, finding people are naturally nervous about the idea that someone's going to bring them something. They have no idea what's broken with it, and they have to help them take it apart and troubleshoot it, right? But that's why I set the threshold so low. We don't have any guarantees at Fixit Clinic it's going to go home fixed. We're just going to open it up and fool around with it inside and see if we can make it work. And lo and behold, most of the time, it goes home fixed.
But it instills confidence in young people.
Right.
Confidence is one of the lacking elements why people go into the criminal element.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have that confidence. They feel inferior. But when you know that you can put something together and make it work, it changes the whole dynamics of who you are. Am I right?
Right. So
we have outside of the inner city. The problem is that there's not anybody to convey to a lot of people, especially people in the inner city, especially kids who are bored and angry, and people who are disillusioned, people who fall into the cracks. Here is an industry that you can do in your garage, is go around and find things and fix them. And there is somebody who's fallen through the cracks, or somebody who does not have enough money to go to the dollar store, the dime store, or whatever store, Macy's or Nordy's or anything like that, and buy something new. We were just talking, there was a man of Indian descent there. He was in my neighborhood the other day picking up all the Christmas junk. Where it's going to go, I have no idea. But he has so much stuff on his truck. And hey, you got to just get down and do what you got to do, to make it sometime in life. And recycling appliances is going to become big business, because as our economy falls and the middle class gets squeezed and the lower middle class gets squeezed even more, because what they want to do with this society now is bring in $14 jobs. Everybody's supposed to have a job, but they're going to be at $14 an hour. So whatever you need to make the ancillary elements of life work, you need to just do it. Okay? Repairing beat up post-war appliances. And let me tell you something. You want to talk about the landfill mass this stuff goes into every year? You have any idea what it is?
right, so at Fixit Clinic, we have diverted, at least the ones in Minneapolis that have done that, in the 50 Fixit Clinics, they have diverted up to almost 4 tons of consumer electronics and returned it to service. Not just recycled it, actually put it back into use for its
4
intended purpose.
tons, you know how much? That's a tractor trailer.
That's plenty. I've wondered at which point is it cost effective if we want to do some sort of a movement thing for cities. So, where we live in the East Bay, our landfill waste gets trucked over the hill to Tracy.
Right.
Okay? And so it costs a ton of money to move. I wonder what it costs to move a pound of a toaster oven. At what point does it become more cost effective for us to stick a UPS label on it and ship it back to Black & Decker and say, here's your broken toaster oven back. Okay, you figure out what to do with it. Don't put it in our landfill. Among my many peeves is someone showed up at a Fixit Clinic with a toaster oven that was still under warranty, under a year old.
Really?
Okay, and they said, I called the manufacturer and told them it was broken, and they said, oh, don't even bother to send it back to us. We'll just ship you another one. So he brought them both. Okay, he brought the working one and the broken one, because he wanted to just sort of understand why the broken one broke. Okay, now that one story speaks to all sorts of things that are broken about modern consumption, the whole warranty process, the way manufacturers see us, and the whole sense of, you know, repairability, the whole, like, basically tossing away the whole planet environment. What the hell? It costs, it's so cheap, or from our perspective, we don't even want to get it back to fix it. We want to just have you throw it away, so, and we'll just ship you another one.
You know what, years ago, my kid Lyndon he was going down the street and he saw the first generation of 40-inch flat screen TVs. And he picked it up and put it in the back of his car and brought it home. And I said, well, what are you going to do with that? He said, well, I'm going to find somebody to fix it. And it was, you know, back then, 8-9 years ago, when they first came out, they were like $600, $700, $1,000 for a flat screen 40-inch, $1,100. And that was something so minuscule about it. It was a knob or control something, you know, problem that it had. And I never forgot that. But I just don't understand why we throw away so much in this country. You go to other countries, I go to the Philippines, Dubai, even Dubai, but North Africa, Senegal, you know, Marrakesh, you know, they don't throw stuff away. They open it up and see why it went and what's wrong with it. So why can't we, as you as a mentor, why do you get that idea across to us? We need to just take a little bit of initiative. That's the word I'm looking for. Am I right?
Well, we're in a very wealthy society, so the idea, I think earlier generations, if the TV broke, it was really expensive to replace it, and
Right.
repairing was a different. There was a different relationship. So there's three words I think about a lot. I think about repair, I think about maintenance, and I think about serviceability. And this idea that when your car doesn't run out of gas, when your car runs out of gas, you don't throw it away. You know you got to service. You know, if your car needs an oil change, you don't throw it away. You know you need to maintain it.
Right.
All right. And yet there's this whole class of consumer items that people have just assumed, oh, I don't have to do nothing. I buy it from the store, and it's supposed to work flawlessly, you know, until it breaks. But then I just assume, well, that's just the way it is. Throw it out, get another one, without sort of saying, well, why did this thing break? And what, you know, maybe it's not that hard. And then the part that really gets me, and we could get into, is what manufacturers do to cut corners so they can sell you a $10 toaster at Walgreens as opposed to a $90 toaster, you know, at Macy's or whatever. But even there, I'll tell you, the difference between a $10 toaster and a $90 toaster is not that different. They both fail the same way. And I wondered at some point, as a side thing to Fixit Clinic, suppose we could offer the lifetime toaster. Suppose we could basically say to people, you know what, you buy this toaster from us once, and it will last for multiple
They're not going to
generations.
do that.
Well, what would you have to charge? Okay, how much money would you have to charge for the lifetime toaster?
That's inconceivable.
Okay, so you know this thing in Moore's law on computers, okay?
Right.
The processors get twice as dense and half as cheap every 18 months, all right?
Right.
Suppose we applied Moore's law to consumer electronics. We've had toasters for 50 years. What would a toaster, if we had applied Moore's law to toasters from the first day, a toaster today would cost 25 cents. You just think you want toast and it would make toast or something. You pour wheat in the top and toast comes out the side or something like that. All right? It would last multiple
I really
lifetimes.
think, though, that most companies, they purposely make faulty equipment, especially when it comes to computers. I think they make it break down at a certain time so that you can keep coming back.
So there are some egregious examples of that.
Yeah.
We could go into that. So yes, that is
Please
true.
do.
But we as no, we don't have to go there.
Okay.
No, because but we ultimately have the ultimate power. Okay. If we understood that, for example, this certain manufacturer shall remain nameless inkjet printer had actually a suicide counter inside. That they had, for good reasons from their perspective, they decided that after a certain number of copies, this printer should just stop working.
Really?
Now, if we as consumers knew that, we would, and that was widely advertised, we might think twice about buying that that inkjet printer. Okay? Yes, that actually was one inkjet printer manufacturer.
Get out of here.
Well, because there was this sponge inside that soaked up the excess inkjet ink, and they decided that was not a end user serviceable part. And they basically, their engineers calculated that at some point that sponge would saturate, and the computer and the printer would start to make bad copies, and then people would say, oh, it's a junky printer from there. You know, that they were trying to keep the perception of the printer being a bad printer because it was making smeary copies. so they just said, at that point, the computer will just shut down and refuse to after a certain paper count,
Send them out of copies.
yes, it would just stop working.
Outta here.
And some programmer overseas figured out how to basically reset that for you, but you have to be able to be willing and able to research the problem.
And there are some very smart people who are willing to dig in and find out, well, how can I fix this?
No, everybody's got to have that skill. That's why I'm doing Fixit Clinic. It's not just me and my Fixit coaches, okay? We're just showing people, the reason why I like it when 5-year-olds show up at Fixit Clinic is because when they're 7 years old and the microwave goes out in the house, they might go to their parents and say, maybe we don't have to throw that away, maybe we can fix it. When they're a teenager and they inherit their family's iPhone 5 because the parents got the iPhone 7 and it breaks, and they're in school and their parents saying, well, there's no way we're buying you another iPhone. They're highly motivated to get this thing working again. Maybe they'll figure out that they can fix it.
Well, the fact of the matter is that people now cannot afford the iPhone 5 or iPhone 7 now. And this is their sales are plummeting right now because the economy's going down and the economy's getting tight. And fixing something like that is very critical, am I right?
There's certain element of Fixit Clinic where it's people who, they got to get it fixed.
Right.
Because that's the one that they have. Okay, they're highly motivated to get it fixed. So a lot of people come to us because the item has an excellent provenance for them. Okay, those Sunbeam toasters. This was my grandmother's toaster, and I got it from her apartment when she went to assisted living, and it's been serviced, working fine for me. It's a wonderful toaster, and with my grandma, so I love to keep it going. I had it in an early Fixit Clinic. Some guy showed up with a microwave oven his parents had given him as a high school, college graduation present. And even though he was working a good job and he could go out and buy a brand new microwave oven, he wanted to get that one working again.
Well, we have to change the community's ideas of newer is better. A lot of times newer is cheaper, but it's not better.
So I actually think things that are repaired at Fixit Clinic are better than new. Okay? They're better than new because you know it now. You've been inside it. It's intimate with you now in a way it wasn't intimate with you before.
Yeah.
and now you can basically understand more about it. Next time it breaks, you're not going to be afraid to delve into it.
But it goes back to maintenance, like as you were saying, am I right?
Sure. Well, look, the toaster has a crumb tray. That woman who was having the toaster smoke, she never, there were instructions.
2 years. She had the toaster 2 years and never cleaned it up.
Look, I'll tell you. All right. So here on the radio, I'm going to tell you the one major secret of. You know what the #1 fix at Fixit Clinic is?
What?
We replace a ton of AA and AAA batteries.
That
Get outta
makes
here.
sense. Well, that's because some companies make good batteries, so you forget that you need to replace them because they last so long.
No, people come, honestly, in their defense, people come in and they say, well, I put new batteries in and it still doesn't work, okay? But you and I know, everybody's got a battery drawer at home where they throw all the batteries.
Yeah,
They're
they
not,
do.
okay? So they just go in there and get a couple more batteries. They don't know if they're good or not. So the first thing I do when I see that, they come in with something that runs on AA or AAA batteries, it doesn't work, and I put new batteries in, I say, listen, I trust that you did, but let me just try some other new batteries here, right? Okay? Actually, I give it to them. I say, just try new batteries, okay? Now, the thing that's really wonderful about Fixit Clinic and having people be involved in their own repair is that when that thing starts working again, it's like the resurrection of Christ. It's like Easter. People just love it. They just are so excited and thrilled that it came back to life and they did.
Yeah.
So think about when we crossed that threshold where we really could do this sort of social protest thing where instead of instead of having our municipal waste throw it out, we ship it back to the manufacturer. Or maybe our municipal waste holds it all. It says, okay, we're getting tons and tons and tons and tons of these toaster ovens. Let's wait till we've got a bunch of them and just ship them in bulk back to the manufacturer and say, it's your problem, you figure it out.
If the consumer would do that, go to UPS, it's nothing to send anything back to UPS. It's just pennies on the dollar. You go out there and buy 2 packs of cigarettes, that's $20. Am I right? Some of them are $10 a pack now. You can take $4 or $5 and go to UPS and buy a $2 box and send this thing back to them. Hey, here your crap back. Again, you figure out what's wrong with it. You figure out what you're selling me and why you're selling me this thing.
Right.
But that's being counteracted. We don't have that in our society anymore. People don't think that far.
Well, there's a trend now towards repairability by design. Okay, so that we are really going to try to encourage moving forward that people who create consumer goods think from the very beginning when you're putting this thing together. How do I make it so that it's designed to be repaired? Not just designed to be recycled. So there's that too. But actually think about repairability as a critical element, and then to create that critical sense in the consumer public to think about, okay, when I buy something, how easy is it to service, maintain, and to throw away? And what went into this even before I started? What conflict metals were used to manufacture this device? You know, what's the karma of this device that I'm about to buy? Do I really want to be involved in this?
Those are some good things to ask yourself.
Absolutely. I mean, but people we don't have that mindset now. All right, a lot of us don't have that mindset. It's thinking of, more carefully about just being a critical person, because a critical thinker around this. Because look, ultimately, you worked for those dollars, okay? And you exchanged your life energy. If you make $10 an hour, you exchange an hour of your time for that $10, okay? And so if you're going to go spend that $10 on a toaster, and that toaster only lasts for 6 months or a year, have you really honored your life and your life energy adequately by doing that?
Well, people don't look at that. Let me make you laugh. A lady one day, about a year ago, and I don't know why this is synonymous with this conversation, but it comes up. She said to me, I have a toaster that smokes, and I'm afraid it's going to burn my house down. So if you can take it and put it on your truck. I took the toaster, I turned it upside down, it was full of breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
I opened the little door on the bottom and cleaned it out and blew it out with the air hose in my garage and took it back to her. She says, oh no, that's gonna burn my house down. I said, when the last time you cleaned the bread out of it? You know,
Yeah.
and there was another lady, I mentioned no name, she was so furiously mad at me because she called me up one day in the refrigerator and it had defrosted all the frozen stuff and blood from the meat was running down in the refrigerator and she was yelling and screaming, it don't work no more, it ain't no good. And this mentality, I said, well, okay. So I said, let me go, as a friend of mine, I said, let me go and get you a used refrigerator. So I did. I went and got a 10-year-old Kenmore. And I gave it to her, and I took the older one out, and I put it on my truck. And I was looking at it when I got it on my truck. Cat hair, she has cats. But there was other stuff in it too. It was full of everything. The condenser was just full, it was packed so hard. And then one of her kids, there was a sock underneath there, she has a little one, 3 years old, he was shoving toys underneath there. And then the thing was against the wall. So you can see the imprint of the heat from the evaporator coil on the wall. So I said, wow. And I took it home, and the refrigerator is 2010, 2011. Okay, and I said, wow. So I washed it out with the water hose. Then I checked the clicks on it on the compressor, and it was all sealed, and I didn't wet anything up. And I let it sit 2 or 3 days, and I plugged it in.
So congratulations, you know what we already know at Fixit Clinic, which is that for most things there really is no magic to this.
That was what I was looking for.
Yeah, there really is no magic to this. It's just people have relinquished their power for independent thought. It's broke.
Independent thought is a big
and critical
lacking
thinking.
What do you call it?
And critical thinking.
Critical thinking. We don't do that
And
in
so,
our society.
and so when I look at those other models where they have these repair cafes or these other, bring it in, we'll fix it for you, or even paying for repair, I feel like, but it doesn't transfer any knowledge. It doesn't provide any edification for the person for whom it broke in the beginning in the first place.
What you're doing is good, because a lot of times companies who repair computers and such, really all they do is just repair some batteries, like put in some new batteries and charge you like a few $100s. That happened to me. The guy was like, oh, and by the way, remember to check the batteries and replace the batteries. I'm like, you mean to tell me that's what was wrong with my keyboard? Because I have a wireless keyboard. And I needed to put new battery, but I didn't know that you put batteries in the keyboard. I was only putting it in the mouse. So...
Well, when you're in a repair business, that's where you make your money, is on those repairs, because some repairs are really hard and you don't make money on them. Okay, and so I'm in a little bit of conflict.
Wait a minute, let me stop you for a minute. Let's back up. Batteries.
Yeah.
Is a major element in a lot of the stuff that you do.
No, well, power. power, you know,
Power, yeah.
or the
Remote stuff.
The AC cord is frayed, okay? So because I've been yanking the toaster out by the wire for 6 years, okay? So when I know people on the radio can't see me doing this genuflecting here or whatever I'm doing, but we just I'll plug in the toaster and I'll push the wire into the AC enough so that it makes connection again and the toaster's working again. You know, just basic common sense about, well, it's dead in the water. Have I thought about, is it actually getting power to begin with? Right? Wow. Or when the batteries leak inside, like when that white crust shows up inside the battery compartment, people think at that point, I gotta throw it away, it's no good anymore. All right? That's just a function of battery chemistry. You know, you're gonna have bad batteries. You put an eraser, an emery board, or some steel wool in there, and shine that thing back up, and pop the batteries back in, and the thing will come back up to life in a heartbeat.
Oh boy,
Wow.
I gotta throw one at you. The lady that lives down the street was ready to get rid of a 60-inch TV because it didn't work no more, you know, and the guy next door put batteries in it. I mean,
The remote.
the remote.
Yeah.
And some of the newer TVs, people don't know that you go behind them, the buttons are still manual buttons on them. They just figure, well, it's remote, everything is remote, everything is better, so it don't work no more until they get rid of it. What an analogy.
So, like I said, why are we so willing to relinquish our power for independent thought? Why have we lost these critical thinking skills that are so critical to just everyday life? You know, she could have, so she was ready to throw away a 60-inch flat screen, buy a new one. So probably, you know, 60 inches is $800, $900.
Right.
For $1 worth of AA batteries.
That's right. So, lady community, Eyez, you want to talk to the lady community out there?
Well, I think that going to the Fixit Clinic is definitely a good start, because sometimes, you know, we get taken advantage of, and going to repair shops and everything. So that's definitely something we should definitely look into.
Some of my best Fixit coaches are women. And I'm actively trying to do more fabric and textile repair component to Fixit Clinic. So it's not just about textile, it's about, you know.
Yeah, well, I definitely have experience, you know, being a woman and people assuming like I'm, like talking to me pretty much like I'm stupid, and it turns out I knew what I was talking about. So that's happened to me like quite a few times as a young lady, so yeah.
Well, the women community, they get it worse than anybody else. You know, because, you know, it's like anything else. If you just don't know, you don't know.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the big thing about it. And, you know, and there's a lot of little bitty things out there we don't know anything about that we need to have somebody look at it. And if you got a boyfriend, this is what I want to say to women. If you don't have a boyfriend who can get out there and help you out and do things, and on top of it, you know, help you pay for things, and sometimes, you know, get rid of it.
Yeah, now that's a subject I can talk about. I specifically asked a boyfriend of mine because I won a fan in a contest, a modeling contest, and I put it on top, okay, but you need to put screws in it. So what I did is I just set it up, and it was spinning around, and I said, here, can you put this together for me? And all he did was say, oh, sure, and he just kind of looked at it and just put it back. I'm like, you didn't put the screws in? Like, I mean, you're a man. That's why I asked you to do it. It's like, you put the screws in. This is a tough part for me. So
I'm having a big problem with this whole gender assumption that men are like good.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
No. Some of my best Fixit coaches are women.
Yeah, well, yeah, women are smart. See, that's the thing. It's just that I think with most women, when it comes to like screws or having to climb or reach something, those types of things, it's not that we can't do it ourselves. I think that growing up with a father, you know, the dad always fixes things. So.
Well, you know what? We're having a real good, vivacious is the word I want to use. Oh my God. Oh, them big words. They really get me sometime. Anyway, we're here with Peter, and we're actually talking a lot of common sense today. And we're talking about money. It's not about money. It's about making your life a lot more pleasurable, you know, and fixing and understanding, you know, what you have when things go broke around your house there. He was talking about someplace they say 4,000 pounds The Bay Area, for my research, goes through 81 tons a month of discarded electronic stuff. 81 tons. That's just one place in Berkeley. I asked them, you know, how many? He said we get about 80 to 90 tons a month that we shuffle out of here. And you know, if you look at that, maybe 30% of that, maybe 40%, maybe a little bit more, I don't know, is fixable by the person who had it. And one of the things Peter was talking about is something breaks, go to UPS, get you a box and send it back to the manufacturer and tell them why. Put them on a slight note that says, why is this breaking? You know, get some kind of dialogue going with the people who make it. Just don't take it upon yourself to figure, oh, you know, you're not the mechanic, you're not this. You know, there are avenues to everything. And I would not have thought about that. But that's a good idea, Peter. Send it back to them.
Yeah, I actually had a pair of Wakely hiking boots that I bought from REI, and the midsole deteriorated, and I had barely worn them.
Wow.
And I have other manufacturers' hiking boots where that does not happen.
Wow.
And so I put, you know, so REI used to have lifetime warranty, like LLE.
Right.
You bring it back, they give you credit for it. They don't do that anymore. So they got wise to that. but well, I would challenge REI as a co-op, especially, and as an REI member. If they ask me to fill out the next survey, I'm going to say you need to talk to your manufacturers about saying things that honor the planet. You know, by making durable goods that work. Because the soles on this thing are perfect. The uppers are perfect. The midsole deteriorated over time, and there was no reason for that. You know, sitting in the closet, these shoes fell apart. And that's just not right. And for something like that, if I had been out on the trail, 10 or 20 miles in, and they had started to fall apart, I would have been in deep doo-doo. You know, so it's just, you know, so that's an example that's non-electronic. I mean, because at Fixit Clinic, we take anything. Okay, it's not. I mean, we have a reputation for being good with consumer electronics, but honestly, it's like improv. You never know what the general public's going to bring in the door. So we have fun. We have fun, and it can be a chair that needs to be recaned. You know, it can be anything that people bring in that will work on with them.
You know, getting back to the guy in Berkeley, 80 tons is a lot of money. That's a lot of stuff that, you know, is repairable.
But it's worth zero now. I mean, right? Or whatever. It's scrap value.
Right,
Okay?
right.
So that's a terrible way that we are not honoring this precious planet that nurtures us, that keeps us alive, that sustains us. We're taking things out of it, we're extracting them, we're making them to high value, things that have perceived high value, they're expensive, and yet very, very quickly we basically throw them back and don't even throw them back in a way where they can be reused properly. We basically are like I think I said earlier, we're basically fighting a war of attrition with the planet.
Wow.
And we're winning.
You know, I think the trickiest.
But we're ultimately losing.
Yeah.
I think the trickiest and probably what's getting thrown in the garbage a lot are the USB chargers. Because at the tip, it always bends or something always happens to where your phone isn't charging, and it gets so frustrating. And at some point, you just buy another one and throw it away.
Right, and so has anyone done any research to decide, is there some manufacturer out there that's making a good quality USB charger that doesn't bend as easily? You know, and I've had some that have lasted better than others, but there's no way for us to disseminate this information now. Even somebody like Consumer Reports, who we would expect to be able to give us good reviews on things. They do a good job with cars maybe, but they don't do a good job with home appliances.
Well, not something as small as a USB charger.
Okay, but how many USB chargers? I've been through dozens.
I've probably been about 15.
Okay.
15 within the last few years.
Okay, so I finally knuckled down and paid $9 or $10 for one that had a braided cable and had reinforced ends, and it's actually held up pretty well.
Wow.
Mine, I found one that one of my kids had left with the braided cable, with the wire braided cable, and it's still good. And I was wondering about that, you know, because I had two that just came apart, you know. And I tell you, you know, sometimes you wonder, you know, having people like you on this show just makes me feel pretty good.
So you think it's the cable that that is affecting
So you're
it.
bending the little metal thing? Is that
Uh-huh.
what- So I haven't seen that failure mode. So you're breaking them in a different way.
Well,
But this is but these are all sorts of things that a really honest and a manufacturer with integrity would care about. So that if you could like mail that cable back to the manufacturer and say, I want you to know that I used this in a way that you intended me to use it, and I broke it, then they might say, you know, we have to make that beefier. You know, and this whole idea of applying Moore's law to various things, making things twice as good and half as cheap every 18 months. I'm trying to apply Moore's law to healthcare right now.
yeah.
Healthcare.
Yeah.
Oh, blow me away. How is that?
Well, we live in this era of cheap and ubiquitous sensors. There's all sorts of ways that we can monitor human health well and carefully. It's taking a long time to disseminate out there. But I think very soon we're going to see that the developing world is going to have health outcomes, population health outcomes that overall are better than we're having here in the United States. And certainly for a ton less money. All right? So I didn't make this up. It was actually the latest chancellor for UCSF, Susan Desmond-Hellmann. Before she became chancellor, she actually, I saw her speak at the UC Berkeley School of Public Health, and she said, why can't we apply Moore's law to healthcare? That was her challenge to us.
You getting back to who we are and what we are and the way we look at life and the way a lot of us are so spoiled that we don't want to think to that degree. There are people that, you know, envision this, people that enlighten us. We need to actually just go out and communicate better to our society, because we don't absorb things real good. You know, we get into a rut in life in this country, and we refuse to get out of that damn rut because we think there's nothing better. But we're not an innovative society at a lot of levels.
So my thesis professor, God bless him, he taught me, he said, the trick to education is to teach people in such a way that they don't realize they're learning until it's too late. And so I'm always looking for those ways to teach people in such a way that they don't realize they're learning until it's too late.
I'm gonna say something to you about that. That's the brightest thing that you said today. That, you know how sometimes something sticks in your brain? That is stuck in my brain. And I desecrate the English language, you know.
That's
And
because
that-
you didn't know you were learning.
Oh,
He made it fun for you.
yeah. You know, you're one of the most common sense people we've had here, being honest.
Okay, well, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a little nervous. It doesn't bode well for society as a whole, but okay, I'll take the credit. I'll take
Serious?
the credit. Thank you.
Because, you know, we get a lot of people and they talk about their craft and what they do, and, you know, but when you come to teaching people something, psychologically teaching people and injecting something into their psyche, they don't know that's there, and they go ahead and transit on it and open the door and actually use it later on in life. That's a God-given thing. You're a very intuitive person. You know, you're in touch with who we are and what we are. That is one of the things that when I was doing my research, that's the feeling that I had. This is one guy who is in touch with somebody on my level.
So I should probably be like, oh, shucks and blush, but the prescriptive answer is, how true.
Serious. You know, a lot of people, they don't talk common sense. Our society is not common sense anymore.
Well, I think also people don't want you to be a free thinker. They don't want you to be an independent thinker. They want you to just do what the media tells you. And a lot of times the media isn't even, the media, what people don't realize, every time you're watching the news, you're watching somebody sponsored that story. Because a lot of times what the media does, they'll take photo, like some photos, however they got the stock footage, and then they'll create a story about the whole thing. I was just reading one the other day with my manager about some guy, he killed a pet deer. But this story takes place in Kansas, and then they were doing the quotes of the girl. Oh yes, when I went to talk to my mom, I'm like, but wait a minute, nobody says mom in Kansas. Mm-hmm. So like a lot of these stories like are fake. So, you know, but also like for those out there listening, you know, be an independent thinker, you know? Come to the Fixit Clinic. You don't want the media, the government, and everyone above you telling you what to think. Like you have to be a slave. You have to buy. When really you just need to replace the battery.
Fix.
fix it.
And
just
you know
fix
what? I think Peter has brought that phrase independent thinking up at least
Yeah.
20 times.
Critical thinking too.
Critical thinking. Those are two of the things that you continuously say over and over, and being independent, which makes people psychologically feel empowered.
Well, knowledge is power. If you know how to fix something, then you are not beholden to that thing any longer. Okay? You've been inside it, you've forced it into your will once, and you can subdue it to your will again. So, and then you can look at all the other things around you, and not just the things that are supposedly in service to you, these appliances and these items and your phone and stuff. Then you can start to look at the society as a whole, because that's in service to you too. Okay? Then you can look at civilization as a whole, because that's in service to you too.
Yeah.
Okay, like I opened with, okay, my main goal with this, it seems very humble, and it's you know, we're helping people fix their broken consumer electronics and their broken appliances, you know. But you know, the main goal here is to demystify science and technology so we can make better policy choices.
Demystify.
as
That's
a
the cliche,
society
am I
going
right?
forward, okay?
Isn't that the right cliche?
Because we're going to have a stem cell research debate or something else going on, and we need for people to understand. I mean, this stuff is hard. It's
Right.
technologically, it's challenging, but it's affecting us all over the place.
Right.
Yeah. And that's where mindful consumption comes into play. Because if you get to the point before you even purchase something, is this something that will I be able to fix it? Is it easy to fix? You know, does it take, you know, lessons or anything just to keep the thing going? You know, so yeah, you start to think about before you even purchase it, before you even have it for a few years or however long before it breaks down.
I would back it up one step even further. If you figure out how much you make an hour, and then you can somehow equate that to this item. So like I was giving that example earlier about making $10 an hour and buying a toaster for $10. So it's 1 hour of your life to buy that thing. All right? You might look at all your purchasing very differently at that point.
Wow.
That is good. That is good. I like that. Say that again.
Okay, so let's open it up a little bit. So imagine Bill Gates or Warren Buffett. They're the richest people on the planet, okay? You are right. They have many, many, many orders of magnitude more money than you and I have. But they can't buy more life with it. You know, you can refine and say, well, they can use the life they have more efficiently. They can leverage the money to make them more efficient. But they're all, you, them, I, we're all going to live about 80 to 100 years. They can't live 8,000 years with their money. Okay? And so so time is the most precious thing any of us has. So how are you going to maximize that? Okay, so most of us spend it off doing paid employment, okay? And that's how we utilize our life energy to do that. So if we're going to do that, if we're going to make that exchange of life energy for dollars that we get from our paid employment, then you better make sure every one of those dollars is stretched to the max, okay? Because that's your life. You're holding your life when you hold that money. You're holding your life, essentially.
You know what? I'm gonna get off key a little bit. You open up my mind a little bit to actually think, and I hope you do that to everybody that you meet. What came into my mind is a friend of mine. He's 80 years old. He has a 15-year-old daughter. Okay, so that means he was 65. Am I right? When she was born, and he just bought a house out in the hills, out in the Berkeley Hills, hanging off the side of a cliff. You know, and I asked him, I was up there Sunday, and I said, Mayo, I said, what's the hell, what's going on here, man? He looked at me, he says, look out, what do you see, Chuck? I said, what do you mean what? I said, I see a lot of landscape, I see greenery. He said, this is what God has given me to look at when I die. You know, and I thought about that when I left. I'm sitting there going, what the hell did he just say to me? You know, the time, the money in life that you invest in life is critical. Whatever you endeavor, go for it, no matter how old you are. He just bought this house 6 months ago. And it's one of the most gorgeous sights that you ever want to see. And he sits there in his easy chair and he looks out at that thing in the evening. He said, this is my grace right here.
Maybe, and that's his value, but I personally would rather die with good friends and family close by, you know, and in their loving embrace, and I'd do that in some little hovel hole somewhere over living in my big
Well,
mansion.
it's
looking out
what he
windows.
what he wants. We ought to do it our way.
No, look, people get to decide.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, but the point is, if it feels like deprivation, people aren't going to do it.
Right.
If you're making a conscious choice about how you're utilizing your life energy,
Right.
God bless him, he has the money to buy a house like
Right.
that. Most of us don't.
Right, he does.
So we gotta do what we can with what we got.
You know what? When I was hitchhiking across country when I was 16, I met a man who says, "I want to die underneath the open sky, underneath the green tree." It's the same thing. As far as I'm concerned, what we endeavor in life. And I looked at him and I really didn't know what he was talking about. I said, "Oh man, you ain't gonna die." He said, "No." He said, "When I die, I want to tie my horse to the thing. I want to sit here, and I want to die underneath and looking at God's green earth." We as human beings, is my point, fail to understand that we have to live a certain way, and you have to love people. You're getting back to what you said, loving people, caring for people, being intuitive, and passing and communicating with people. You're an emissary in that part of life, is my point. You got this thing about e-waste. E-waste today is growing so huge, and it pollutes everything that we have. It will spoil Milo's dream, looking at the thing here, and it will spoil my other friends dying underneath the open skies on a saddle. E-waste is poison, is my whole point. And everything in it is not good. And it does not deteriorate fast.
We're fighting a war of attrition with the planet, and the planet is losing.
That's my point. What do you think about that?
I think that, the government, because I really don't think that us as citizens, we're trying to pollute the planet. I think we do every little thing we can. I think the government as a whole needs to step up and take responsibility, because money isn't going to make you live longer. I mean, think about all the people who are agreeing and signing paperwork to let these laws and let these things slip, and go and make things okay, like with all this e-waste and not recycling it. The truth is, when it comes to electronics, there have always been more efficient and better ways that actually don't cause any harm to the planet, but because you can get something like gas or diamonds or gold, and it's so rare, and it's more wasteful to the planet, but you can charge more money for it that way.
So in your mind, there's a role for government to play.
Yes.
Instead of dictating policy that's good for the whole,
Yeah.
as opposed to.
Exactly.
Okay, and as we've seen, there are a lot of people in this country who disagree with that perspective.
Yeah.
Got it.
That's
Well, I think it's because they're getting paid. Because
Okay.
because I'm not gonna lie, if I'm getting paid to do something, I've done publicity gigs and stuff. Well, it was my job to just agree and be nice and just say yes to everything. So I think that has a lot to do with it. If it's your job to enforce the law,
All right, so now she's talking to another thing that's near and dear to my heart, which
Yeah.
is what I call the absurdity of modern paid employment.
Yeah.
That this idea that
Say that again.
the absurdity of modern paid employment.
Yeah.
So this idea that we have to basically make these compromises when we go and exchange our life energy for dollars. We start to think about sort of what compromises am I willing to make
Yeah.
in order to take these dollars into my life, right?
Yeah.
And it's a brave person with a lot of integrity who can look at a certain type of work or paid
Yeah.
employment and choose, I am going to choose not to do that because I
Exactly.
have to live with myself. Obviously there's certain things that's pretty obvious with,
Yeah.
but even your average office worker probably makes those decisions
yeah.
on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
Someone selling computers has to decide whether or not to lie to a customer about when that computer is going to
Exactly.
show up or not. Just live the little ways that we have to compromise ourselves in order to exchange our life energy for dollars.
Yeah.
Well, you're talking about life energy. I'm going to say something to you from my heart. I'm learning a lot from you, okay, to pass on. I'm going to tell you that right now. Inadvertently learning and not realize I'm learning. That just clicked in my brain. Yeah, I just learned something today, okay? And I hope this jackass they put in charge of the EPA don't get it. I really do. We are in trouble right now with the planet. We are polluting.
Maybe, but look, I love the way that certain people, at least we have the intelligentsia on both sides sort of rising up and saying, no, wait a minute, we don't have to put up with this. So as long as we're talking about this and government's role, there have been in 4 states these legislation passed called right to repair.
Right.
In some ways, what we do at Fixit Clinic is technically illegal. Right?
Really?
Yeah, no, there's so if you read the contract, the service agreement for your phone or for something like that, like you're not allowed to upgrade the software.
That's right.
Okay? You have to wait for them to do it. All right? John Deere has done this with tractors. When you're a farmer and you buy a John Deere tractor, you don't own the tractor. Okay? You cannot service your own tractor. Basically, they have to do it for you.
I think that if you purchase something, that it's yours and you have a right to do whatever you want with it.
That's what you would think. Okay, so we need to codify that in legislation and law. And one of the things that for 2017 that we're going to do with Fixit Clinic is use it as a platform to talk to a lot of people about introducing right to repair legislation in California. And given that we're being so militantly opposed,
right to repair.
Right to repair. Okay, that basically you as a consumer in the state of California, if you buy an item, you have a right to open it up. You have a right to muck with its software. You bought it. You paid money for it. You exchanged your life energy for this
You
item.
mean to say a major entity like John Deere has done something like that to the American?
They fought the right to repair legislation in Kansas.
Really?
Yep. So I'm calling them out. Okay.
Really?
Right, but also with modern automobiles, okay, with modern automobile software, and this is the rationalization, okay, so like, there's all these things, if you can't, they don't want you disabling the airbag in your car or the anti-lock brakes, those are safety mechanisms.
Right.
As we move to autonomous vehicles, and if a car crashes, they're the ones who are going to be liable, okay, we're pushing the responsibility for a crash from the driver to the programmer. Right? So if I'm a hacker, if I want to modify the way my autonomous car works on my own, and there's a crash, first thing they're going to do is subpoena the code. They're going to see, did I touch it? Because then I'm liable and not the car company.
Wow. See, I'm glad you're thinking about that kind of stuff because, I am like more of a independent thinker and I do like electronics and all those things, but I'd rather just have one customly made for me. Like even when it comes to cars, we already know in history, like there are more better ways for the environment to have cars. Like the original cars and trains were steamers, but they destroyed how to make those cars and trains because, like I said, you can charge people money for gas, whereas like when you use water, it goes to steam and goes back up into the clouds and comes back down, it goes back up into the cycle. So, like I've always wanted to like make more customized equipment, for me that doesn't harm the universe.
And the world is going your way. So this whole maker movement, this whole trend towards lightweight manufacturing on demand, this idea that we won't be making big things in the future, we're about hundreds of thousands or something, but we're just making them custom for individuals. And that's where we might return to have semi-skilled labor returning to the inner cities as well. Because things will be made locally. They won't be made in some place in China.
Yeah.